We'd like to welcome you to the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. Good afternoon. I am Dana Johnson. I am a member of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus, the Yonkers chapter. We would like to welcome everyone. The Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus is a nonpartisan political organization for women and men, which encourages informed and active participation in government. This forum is a part of our ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates and what they hope to do for our community. I would like to thank all of the community members for joining us here this evening. I especially like to thank all the district leaders and campaign organizers for assisting the candidates and, even more important, educating our community. A little bit about the history of voting and why the Black Women's Political Caucus knows that this is a valued event. It's because the challenges of voting rights in this country have always been the subject of attention. The landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965, passed by Congress, took major steps to curtail voter suppressions that were happening back then, and we continue to do so even today. Thus began a new era of push and pull on voting rights, with the voting age reduced to 18 from 21, and voting protection rights included for language of minorities and people with disabilities. We want everyone to know it is your right to pursue representation and have your voice heard. So we are ever so happy that you have joined and encourage you to have conversations with your families and community members about what you see and hear with us today. I'd like to start by sharing with you that Election Day is on November the 8th, 2022. Polls will open at 6 a.m. and close at 9 p.m. To find the polling site, visit this link. If you have your phones with you, you are more than welcome to take a snapshot of our slides to further educate you later on, and please do share. You may also contact the Westchester Board of Elections office, and here is their mailing address that is posted for you. The number is 914-995-5285, and they are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. We'd like to thank you all again. Candidates, we'd like to welcome you to our forum. We are so happy that you took time out of your precious day and throughout your canvassing to be here with us and educate all of our constituents. I will start by explaining some procedures for the forum. Instructions for the candidates: you will each have 2 minutes to share why you would be the best candidate for that office. You may want to share some things that are not initially stated in your resumes or on your palm cards. You then will be asked a question, 1 or 2, and you will also have 2 minutes to answer those questions if you choose. Please note, everyone in the room, that this forum is being broadcast live and recorded. It will be rebroadcast several times on YouTube. So it's live Facebook if you like. During our question and answer period, candidates, there will be no time for rebuttals. This is not quite a debate forum. It is really to share with your constituents on why they should choose you. We will have a timekeeper, which will inform you when you have 30 seconds left, and a stop card so that you're aware to please close up your final statements. If you continue to speak after the stop card is held up, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. If there are no questions going further, I'd like to open up our forum with prayer from Ms. Edwards.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let us gather our hearts and minds together and let us lift up our souls unto the Lord. Father, we are so grateful to you tonight to be able to come together and to actually ask questions of those candidates that are going to be presented for government. Lord, you have instituted government. You instituted government for your people. And in government, you have caused us to have good rulers and some bad. We're asking you to bless these candidates to be good representatives of their people, and most of all, to bless them with everything that they stand in need of, and bless us tonight to be able to ask formidable questions that will be suitable to them and helpful to us. In Jesus we trust. Amen.
Amen. So on that note, I want to remind candidates that this is not the forum to make personal references about other candidates. That is out of order in this forum. And again, please note that we are being broadcast live and will be rebroadcast several times. Small instructions for the audience. You are encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on our question and answer box. Please take a second to locate that in the menu bar, usually located at the bottom of your screen. Questions must be addressed to all candidates and must not apply to one individual. It can pertain to the qualifications of their particular office and will allow each candidate to answer as they see fit. So we'd like to thank you again. If there are any questions for the panelists, you may also put that in the Q&A box. We will read as many questions as our time allows, and being considerate of candidates and our community. So we will start with the candidates sharing their personal take to allow all of the community members to decide which candidate is the best. Mr. Pretlow, the floor is yours. We'd like to thank you for running for New York State Assembly District, 89th District. You have the ears of your constituents, sir. As he unmutes himself, we thank you all again for being part of our forum.
There we go. Thank you, Diana. And of course, I'm here with you because I'm always here with you. I go back with the Black Women Political Caucus several years. Not since your beginning. I know we just celebrated your 46th anniversary, and it was a fantastic gala that the county Black Women Political Caucus put on, and I know you're all part of it. And I exercised my right as a kind of a member to dance with you when we did the little jig that back there. But as stated earlier, my name is James Gary Pretlow, and I've represented the 84th, 87th, and now the 89th Assembly District, which is made up of the entirety of the city of Mount Vernon and about a third of the city of Yonkers. I represent basically the southern part of Yonkers. That's from the Bronx line to Tibbetsbrook Park, and I go all the way to the west side from the Bronx line up to the Hudson River Museum, affectionately called Southwest Yonkers. Why am I the best candidate for the job? Because I've been doing it for a while, and I don't think that there are many individuals that have the expertise in the various areas that I specialize in to bring what I consider one of the most important things, especially for the city of Yonkers, and that's the educational system. When I had first started in the assembly, the Yonkers educational system was in shambles. I'll use that word. And because of many of the action that we did, least of which was the institution of the BLTs, that was one of my incentives, and that brought tens of millions of dollars to the city's Board of Education. I think that it's important that we do whatever it is we can for our young people. They are our future. They are, 30% of our population, but 100% of our future. And my main goal has always been and will continue to be good education. Secondly, we try to increase housing. As you've seen in Yonkers, there's a lot of housing going up. Not so much for the people that I represent, the area, Southwest Yonkers, is actually becoming gentrified now. All of the building going on the river. But in another sense, though, that's a good thing because for decades, the river was considered the sewer. And when you'd flush your toilet or whatever, it would go straight into the Hudson River. Now that doesn't happen. And people have discovered that the river is a beautiful thing and something that should be preserved. On the other hand, the good part of having this building boom in the city of Yonkers is that it's bringing in more tax dollars, and those extra tax dollars go toward the things that we care or have near and dear to our hearts, which is housing, affordable housing, and education for our young people. And I see my time is about up. I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you so very much. We really appreciate your sharing and joining us here today. Fantastic. So we'd like to go ahead and elicit a few seconds for anyone who has a question in the question and answer box. Can our question panel please provide Mr. Pretlow with a question in regards to the State Assembly so that he may respond?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Prevo. What do you think are the most important issues facing Yonkers at this time?
Well, I think I made that clear. The issues in Yonkers are gentrification on Southwest Yonkers and education. Those are two of the most important things that I see. Secondly comes jobs. We always have to, create the availability of good, high-paying jobs. One of the things that I've always insisted upon is that when there is any construction going on in the city, if any state funds are involved, that they must include a large percentage of minority and women-owned businesses to participate in those construction projects.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Are there any other questions for the Assemblyman at this time?
No, thank you. Thank you for answering the question.
Thank you so very much. Now we'd like to go back and introduce United States Senate candidate Diane Sayre. So she's going to tell us a little bit about what it is to be into the United States Senate and why we should vote for her. Welcome, Ms. Sayre. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. A little projection would be wonderful.
Sorry, the host just muted me. Does it still say HSDI on me there?
No,
Great.
you are
Okay.
fine.
All right, good. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I don't have my, oh, here we go.
There.
See you and you can see me. I apologize for the background. As you know, U.S. Senate is a statewide race, so I am running all over the place. And I thank you for being so accommodating. My concern as a candidate for U.S. Senate and would be were I to be in the U.S. Senate, which deals with major federal policy and foreign policy, is twofold. One, that we are actually on the brink of a total blowout of the financial system. We have been printing money recklessly, in my opinion, since 2008 at least. And that's the cause of hyperinflation, not the sanctions, which I believe should be lifted. I actually believe sanctions against every nation should be lifted. I don't think it can be the policy of the United States to try and starve people into overthrowing their governments. That's a British colonial policy, not an American policy. That collapse of the system is propelling a drive toward war, perhaps even a nuclear war, which I consider to be extremely dangerous. It is my view that NATO, the United States, and the UK willfully ignored certain legitimate security concerns of Russia's, including the expansion of NATO and the expressed intent of Ukraine to join NATO and even perhaps have a nuclear weapon. Here we are on the 60-year anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis. We ought to understand that. So what I propose, and as LaRouche proposed, who my independent line is named after, is that we have to take a step back from this. We really need a new security and economic development architecture that takes into account the security and well-being of every nation. And the number one issue on the planet is to lift people out of poverty. We have a very dangerous situation in Haiti. I vehemently oppose sending a military force there, but if we would be interested in allowing that nation to develop, I think that would be much more promising. And obviously, similarly in the United States, where we have rampant poverty and an obvious lack of commitment to the principle of the general welfare. So those are my concerns. I think there's nothing facing us that we can't solve, but I worry greatly about the influence of certain corporations, military and otherwise, with a lot of money and what their intention is. And I think the risk of a nuclear war is much greater than we're being told. Those are my comments.
Thank you so very much for sharing those poignant issues. We really appreciate how you decided you would attempt to resolve those issues. And thank you for educating us. I asked the question panel, constituents, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the question and answer box. And I would like to ask Ms. Gillespie or Ms. Williams, do you have any questions for the United States Senate?
Yes, Yonkers is the fourth largest city in New York with a school district of 25,488 students. The infrastructure in many of our schools is in dire need of renovation. What will you do to help improve the long over dilemma that plagues our children so that every student can have the opportunity to discover their greatness?
Thank you so much for that question. I have actually been holding a series of Friday night symposia, and one of them I spoke with a teacher, actually not from Yonkers, but the Bronx, who teaches children with disabilities, who told me that in her school, the faucets in the restrooms did not work, which is very hard to deal with when you're teaching people COVID and hand washing. So I think that we actually need an FDR crash program to fund major from underground up infrastructure. As you know very well, our sewer systems and sewer lines are over a century old. I apologize for that light right here. And our schools, I think we need to get an inventory of the situation in every single public school in this nation. If we can find $80 billion to send to try and escalate a war against Russia, we certainly ought to be able to find a tenth of that, or what it would take to do something to improve the infrastructure of our schools. And I think that's completely urgent, because how can we expect children to be able to concentrate if they're in a situation where there are obvious basic problems?
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I encourage everyone to reach out to the campaign of Ms. Diane Sayre and Mr. Pretlow if you have any further questions, or feel free to forward them to the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus, and we will be more than happy to ask more questions and receive the answers from each of the candidates and directly give them back to you. So thank you both. I'd like to welcome Nader Sage, and he is from the 90th district. And if he will share with us why he thinks he's best candidate. And we welcome you. Thank you so very much for coming. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Annie. To me, it's always a pleasure to participate, to join in discussions and awareness. I'm an educator in the Yonkers Public Schools for over 40 years, served as a teacher, as a school principal for 30 years, as a trustee and president of the Board of Education, president of the Big Five school districts. So if anybody knows education, I know education. And just to clarify, we're the third largest city in the state of New York. And we have a school system that has a lot of success, but at the same time has a lot of needs. We have a large student diversified population. We have a large English language learners. We have a school system with many buildings where schools are 100 years or older. And when I got elected to the assembly in 2018, my main mission was, among many other topics, to address education, which I have. And we, over the last 2 years, have increased the funding to Yonkers schools by $71 million. And this is one of the biggest increases we've had. We restored foundation aid. We upped the percentage that Yonkers gets for renovating and building new schools during that time from 50 cents on a dollar to a little over 70 cents on a dollar. We still have a way to go. I, as your assemblyman, have already sponsored legislation that would change the funding formula, change the way we build schools, allow us to get what Buffalo and Rochester and others get. They get like 98 cents a dollar when they build or renovate. We want the same treatment. In addition, we are strong on labor organizations, on women's rights, on addressing the inflation with an exemption on diapers, an exemption on gas, giving homeowners over $1,000 in rebate checks, supporting small business, dealing with the pandemic. So I'm an active legislator. I know Yonkers, I know the community. I'm an immigrant myself, so I understand the plight of working men and women and understand the needs for affordable housing and understand the need for making sure that individuals, no matter who they are, have equal access to government and to services.
Thank you so very much for sharing your views and how we should attempt some of these complicated issues. We appreciate that so very much. Do we have a question, Ms. Williams or Ms. Gillespie, from our panel or constituents for Nader Sage, running for New York State Assembly District, 90th District?
By the way, if I may, just another minute.
Another whole minute?
No, 30. I just want to
No,
announce
go ahead.
today. I just wanted to announce, we're addressing crime, and Governor Hochul today had a major press conference, the Lieutenant Governor, and $28 million was just announced for crime prevention, education initiatives, community service, training, job training, support services. Of the 28 million that would be given to 7 cities, 4 million would be given to Yonkers, and I believe 4 million to Mount Vernon. So, kudos to the governor, to the Democrat legislative body for supporting real initiatives to address crime in our community.
Well, thank you so very much. I see that you have given an extra plea for Governor Hochul, so we'll count her as marked in present. Thank you so very much for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Good job.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms. Bracy, Ms. Williams, or can we move on?
I'd like to ask, how could parents' rights be protected with children under the age of adolescent?
Well, parents always have the right. As a school principal, I strongly encourage parents to always stay involved, whether through PTA organizations, stay involved with their children's teachers early on. If they know of any conditions or issues or concerns that impact their children, they should get involved with support service staff. I've always said to parents that any early detection that impacts their kids, the earlier we as educators know, the more specific we can address their problems. And when it comes to initiating concerns, I always tell individuals, parents, workers in an organization, always go to your initial steps. If it's at the job site, go to your supervisor, go then to a higher level, to the board level. On a school level, student rights are very, very crucial. So you go to your child's teacher, you go to support service staff, you go whether it's to the principal or the AP, and if there is no action, you go straight to central office, you contact the superintendents or even the Board of Trustees office. I always encourage parents, you need to be involved with your children's education. You need to utilize not only school-related, but also community-based. There's a lot of government programs. If drug addiction is an issue, if God forbid psychiatric mental illness is an issue, there's programs and services to address, but we need to be proactive.
Thank you so very much for enlightening us and educating our parents and our families. Please do share some of that information. And if you're having any difficulty, please feel free to reach out to Native Sage and his campaign. And I'm sure they'll be right there to assist. I know we'd like to hear from everyone. We'd like to welcome you, Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Can you tell us a little bit about why we should continue to keep you in the United States New York State Senate. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. I was going to say I was getting a promotion there, but
An elevation, yes.
but thank you. I, as you said, am Andrea Stewart-Cousins, and I'm running for the re-election in the 35th Senate District. And like all of my colleagues, the district has changed significantly. So whereas I had half of 3 cities, I don't anymore. I have the majority of Yonkers. I also continue to have Greenberg, and now I have Mount Pleasant. So Sleepy Hollow, Valhalla, Hawthorne, Thornwood, Pleasantville are now mine as well. And I've lost, sadly, some of you in White Plains and New Rochelle and Scarsdale. However, because I am the leader of the Senate and I am the first woman leader that New York State has ever had, I don't consider myself not having anyone. I am responsible for the workings of the state, and in that role as majority leader since 2019, I'm very, very proud of the things that myself and my conference has been able to accomplish. You've heard everything from the extraordinary amount of investment we've put, historic amount of investment we put into education. I heard both assemblymen talk about that, and I'm sure Senator Mayer, who's my education chair, will talk about it as well. But Yonkers is always, Yonkers and frankly, all of our school districts that were serving some of our poorest kids had been left behind in the state for a very, very long time. So we've invested $31 billion in education, and everyone has now has either gotten what the state has owed them or will have it all by next year. We've expanded pre-K, we've expanded access to childcare. People have talked about voting rights. We were worst in the nation in terms of our voting rights. Now we're first. We've expanded it by making sure people have early voting. We have expanded polling sites. We also have vote by mail, which sadly was not, ratified by the electorate. However, we're still dealing with absentee ballots, and we will continue to push to expand the franchise. People have talked about crime, and certainly we are addressing crime by making common sense gun safety laws. And as Assemblyman Sage said, we just announced $28 million that will go to fight crime in 7 major cities, including Yonkers and Mount Vernon. And that's on top of our continued investment, over $200 million in terms of crime prevention and trying to get a handle on this, including more mental health beds and more mental health resources. We are first in climate, and I am finished.
Thank you so very much. I see you're trying to preempt our questions.
Well, we've done a lot. I'm very proud of what we've done. And obviously there's more to do.
Oh, thank you so much. Is there a question for Andrea Stewart-Cousins coming from our question and answer panel? Ms. Williams, Ms. Gillespie?
Yes, what's your position on gun control?
We've been very, very clear. We don't believe that you're safe by having more guns. And frankly, as soon as the Bruin decision came down from the Supreme Court, we went in and we made sure that it was clear you weren't supposed to be carrying guns in subways. We don't want you carrying guns in school. We don't want you carrying guns in places that are highly populated. And of course, we are now going back and forth because they believe it's unconstitutional for us to do that. But we don't believe that you should be 18 and waiting to get your assault rifle. So we've banned the sale of assault rifles. So we've got the strongest background checks. And I think the governor just talked about with the Attorney General, the efficacy of our red flag laws. Whereas now people are able to say, look, I have a concern about somebody who's stashing guns. Please come and check on this person. So it is very, very clear that we could do more. We have illegal guns flooding our neighborhood. You all should know that 75% of the gun crimes are committed by guns that are illegal and flowing in from every other state. If other states would take the approach that we do, we don't want to take away legal gun owners' guns, but we don't want to make sure that everybody has a gun too. It is not necessary, and certainly we can stem the tide if we just stem the guns.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. All of the candidates and everyone that has joined us, we'd like to thank you. The questions are, so keep the questions coming. We're going to get them in. We'd like to thank you once again, Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, for sharing with us. You are welcome to stay on. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so very much. We'd like to move on to
Dana.
Yes,
Dana, we have Senator Mayer here as well.
Look at you taking the words out of my mouth. All righty then. New York State Senate, Shelley Mayer for the 37th District. Please share with us why you are the best candidate.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for having this and having me and the opportunity to present myself before you. I currently represent the 37th Senate District. And as the Majority Leader said, like everyone else, my current district has been redistricted, and I'll have significantly less of the city of Yonkers in the district that I am running for. I will only have basically a small segment of Northeast Yonkers in the new district. But I think people may know my history. I was the assembly person having the seat that is currently held by our colleague Nader Sage, representing only Yonkers. And until now, I've represented a half of Yonkers with the Majority Leader. And I've had the great honor of being named by her to be chair of the Senate Education Committee. My focus has been on getting Yonkers Public Schools funding, not only for operating money, but for capital as well. And with her leadership, working with my colleagues, people may not understand the enormity of what we did is we got foundation aid, which was adopted in 2007, finally to be paid out, worth millions of dollars that were owed to the Yonkers Public Schools over a 3-year period. We've made 2 of those payments, and we anticipate making the 3rd payment this year. But this is worth millions of dollars. And in addition, we worked closely with Senator Schumer
to ensure that the federal COVID money for education went directly to the Yonkers Public Schools and was not intercepted by the state. So I have been in the trenches on behalf of the Yonkers Public Schools from my time starting in the assembly until now. The second thing I want to say is I had the honor of representing Yonkers in the assembly, and there and now I continue to fight for housing, affordable housing for all of our residents. And I was instrumental in getting funding to rehab every unit in the Yonkers Public Housing Authority, every single unit with capital. And I also worked to get money for every new school to be built in Yonkers based on the district's request. So I am a fighter for Yonkers. I'm proud to live here. I'm happy for my colleague, the majority leader, but I'm disappointed I'll have a smaller segment. But I intend to continue to fight hard for Yonkers if I'm reelected.
Thank you so very much. That was so enlightening. And I'm sure our constituents now know the types of questions that they can reach out to you at your campaign office. If they have issues, you have really enlightened us. Is there a question for Senator Shelley Mayer?
Yes, how could immigration laws be improved?
Well, the primary focus for immigration is at the federal level, where they have the authority to set the laws that govern immigration. But notwithstanding that, at the state, we have done the best we could to deal with a complicated immigration system that needs a federal response. It really does, and we should call that out. And unfortunately, until we get, frankly, some more thoughtful Republicans in the Senate, we can't get that done. But at the state level, one of the things we've done is ensure that we change the laws so that people who did not have a social security number could get a license because they were driving already. And this was supported by law enforcement, and it's been extremely effective. We got that done. We changed some of the laws so that people who were working and then got laid off during COVID, who were not technically eligible for unemployment, were able to get some kind of money to help them survive. And that really had an impact in Southwest Yonkers, in other parts of my district, particularly in Portchester. We have to work with our federal counterparts, and we do work with Congressman Bowman and our senators to try to push for a federal comprehensive immigration reform.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you so very much. The questions are definitely coming in for you, Senator, and we'll be happy to share them with you. Thank you so very much again for taking your time and joining us. I'd now like to move on to New York State Assembly 92nd District. Mary Jane Shimsky, are you on? Welcome, Ms. Shimsky.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. I apologize. I just got a new phone recently and something happened with my Zoom app.
Absolutely.
And I thank all of you for making the effort to allow me to be heard.
Absolutely. We all understand in this new era of Zoom.
Okay, I heard the other questions, so you just want me to give you my 2 minutes?
Absolutely. Explain to the candidates why we should put you on the checkbox when we go to vote.
Okay. What I have learned in my time working around and for government, including 11 years at the County Board of Legislators, is we're not dealing with just a checklist of issues. We are dealing usually with webs of issues. What we have to look at is how we are going to help people and how we're going to solve problems. And usually that does not happen in a silo. For example, you take a young child of color born into a family of limited means, and you think about what it is that can hold that child back, even before the child gets to school. Number one, their family may not be intact because African-American women die in childbirth at a far higher rate than other women. We know that healthcare outcomes and healthcare interventions for other African Americans with other types of healthcare are not what they should be. So they can grow up, so they can end up in a family where their mother is gone or where valued family members are gone. They then come home. There may not be a good, affordable place for them to live. The place they live may be in an environmental justice community, which is going to increase their exposure to certain chemicals that can end up giving them things like learning disabilities. And that means that even before they walk in the door at school, there are issues that have to be dealt with. Affordable childcare is a big problem too, because if their parents cannot live close to where they work because of housing affordability issues, their parents can't spend the time that they would like to spend with them or their primary caregivers. So if there's not quality childcare in place, they cannot get the opportunity to learn and get ready to go to school ready to learn.
Well, thank you
We are
very
dealing
much
with
for sharing.
kinds of issues like these that need to be thought of in a comprehensive problem-solving way. It's not like you solve climate change and you go home. It doesn't work that way, even if you can. So what I hope to bring to the job is talking to all of the stakeholders. I'm already having stakeholder meetings throughout the district, and I'm going to continue having them until I get to Albany. And I am going to be ready to hit the ground running with budget requests and legislation and ideas for legislative oversight, so I could go to state agencies and ask, why do we do things this way? Why can't we do things that way? In the hopes that I can affect change for people like that young person who was born 4 or 5 years ago in a family with limited means. Or
Thank you so
I can
much.
help
Thank you, Ms.
with our
Shinsky.
environmental issues and other issues.
That was fantastic. Very enlightening. We love the piece about problem solving. We do so appreciate you joining. Is there a question? We'd like to move on to the Supreme Court judicial candidates. We have quite a few of the judges on with us. So going in no particular order, I'd like to go on in the order that most of you joined us. But if we can start with, I think Mr. Velasquez is on the line. Mr. Velasquez, we ask that all judges give us a quick 2-minute elevator speech about your position or your background, anything that you'd like to share in order for us to decide that you are the best candidate for Supreme Court Judicial.
I
Mr.
believe that's Judge
Oh.
Alina Goldberg
Oh.
Velasquez.
Hi, can you see me or hear me?
Okay, that's Miss Alina Goldberg Velasquez. Thank you so much.
Hi, I apologize. I'm actually at an event, campaign season. As you know, I'm out there working hard. So my name is Elena Goldberg Velasquez. I'm a judge in the city of Yonkers. Thank you to the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus for hosting this important forum this evening. I was elected to Yonkers City Court in 2019 in a contested citywide race. In City Court, I handle everything from criminal to civil matters. And I was also recently appointed to be an acting family court judge this past January, where I preside over the integrated domestic violence part. Prior to joining the bench, I worked at the New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division First Department in Manhattan, where we hear appeals from the Bronx and New York County on criminal, matrimonial, civil, commercial cases, everything you could think of, you name it, we've done it. Prior to that, I worked in private practice, so I understand the demands of a private practitioner and maintaining your calendar. I'm a daughter of Yonkers. I live here. I'm from here. I have 2 daughters. I'm married, and we have a dog, Ziggy. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much. What we will do is we'll introduce quite a few judges, and then we'll have a question or two for a panel of judges all together, and everyone has the opportunity to answer that question. So thank you so much for staying on the line and listening in for the questions for the judges, and we'd be happy to have you answer if that be your pleasure. So I'd like to move on. Thank you again. Thank you. Carrie Ferrari, is she here?
Oh,
Hi.
hi. Sorry, I was muted for a moment.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you
Please
so
tell us a little
much.
bit about yourself and why we should vote for you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me this evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Carrie Fiore. I'm a support magistrate in Westchester County. I work in Yonkers Family Court. I am running for Supreme Court because I would like to continue my public service in the court. So I've been in the courts for about 14 years now. I started working in Supreme Court for Judge Walker, and I worked in the matrimonial part. And then after I worked for Judge Walker, I worked in family court for Judge Greenwald. And then after I worked for Judge Greenwald, I have been in my current role as a support magistrate for about going on 5 years. I'm sorry, I'm finishing my 5 years in November, starting my 6th year. And as part of my tenure in the courts, I've worked on various committees and initiatives, such as the Access to Justice Initiative and the Diversity Committee. And so I would like to continue my role on those committees, but as a Supreme Court Justice, Supreme Court Justices take on a large role in those organizations, and they can sort of direct where those committees go. And so I would like to do that and continue my work there as a Supreme Court Justice, but in a greater role. Really quickly, personally, well, for my education, I attended Howard University School of Law. Before that, I went to St. John's University in Queens. Personally, I live in Cortland Manor, grew up in Mount Vernon. I have a daughter who's 15, and I'm married to my husband, John, for about 7 years.
Thank you so very much. Thank you again to all of our honorable judicial candidates. So please stay on so that we may ask a question from our panel as they're coming in so rapid. I'd like to now welcome Honorable Ann Minahan. Can you please unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about why you're the best candidate?
Here I am. Thank you so much, Westchester Black Women's Caucus, for hosting this today. I think this is important, particularly for judges where we can't really run on platforms. It's so important for us to be able to introduce ourselves. I am the administrative judge of the 9th Judicial District. I have had a career in the court since 2006. I have been a local court judge in my own village of Croton and also in a number of the cities and towns and villages in Westchester County. I was a court attorney referee in the law department for a number of years. I worked as a principal court attorney for an appellate division justice and also for a Supreme Court justice. I am an elected county court judge now, and I am the administrative judge, as I said before. So I am in charge of running the courts in the 9th. So Westchester, Rockland, Orange, Putnam, and Dutchess, all of their family courts, city courts, surrogates courts, Supreme Courts, and county courts are under my jurisdiction. So I do the assignments. I make sure they have what they need to get their job done. I can't say that I am the best candidate. There are 7 seats, and there are at least 7 very qualified candidates who are going to be elected this cycle, and I am hopeful to be one of them. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very enlightening. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'd like to move on to the Honorable David Squirrel. If you could unmute yourself and share with us a little bit why you would like to be voted in.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is David Squirrel. I'm a candidate for Justice of the Supreme Court. I live in Mount Kisco. I'm married. I have a 22-year-old son and 2 wonderful stepchildren. I've been an attorney for 35 years, and I really consider myself a Supreme Court practitioner for those 35 years. Each of us bring our own strengths to this process. I think one of my strengths is that I have tried so many different types of cases in Supreme Court: medical malpractice, personal injury. I've represented commercial matters. I've represented plaintiffs and defendants, individuals, small businesses, large businesses, governmental entities. Around 6 years ago, I became chief attorney of the Putnam County Legal Aid Society, and that was really a tremendous growth for me as an attorney, because as litigators and attorneys, we tend to see the system through the eyes of our clients, and I really was able to see the system through the eyes of a different type of demographic, and I realized that sometimes there is a lack of confidence in our court system. And if I am fortunate enough to be elected, it would be my priority to make sure that everybody in that courtroom, whether they're a litigant or witness or everyone else, will know that each of my decisions is based only on the law and the facts as they present themselves, because I think that's the most important thing that anybody leaving a courtroom has to understand or should know, that there is a legal and factual basis for decisions and no other basis. So I think I'm within my 2 minutes, and thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. We appreciate that. And please stay on so that you can join us with the question and answer period. Thank you. I'd like to move on to Honorable Amy Puerto. If you can unmute yourself and share a little bit about yourself to your constituents.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Hello.
I had a little trouble unmuting. Thank you so much for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have it. My name is Amy Puerto. I'm one of the candidates for New York State Supreme Court. I've been a practicing attorney in Westchester County for just over 22 years. I spent the first part of my career as a prosecutor in the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, where I prosecuted hundreds of cases from investigation to verdict. I spent the second half of my career there serving as the Deputy Chief of the Domestic Violence Bureau. I prosecuted domestic violence and child abuse cases, ranging from misdemeanors to felonies, simple assaults to murders. And I supervised several attorneys doing the same thing. During that time, I also trained several attorneys and police officers regarding domestic violence arrests and domestic violence legislation. I left the district attorney's office in 2016 and became the principal court attorney to the Honorable Helen Blackwood, as she left the Mount Vernon City Court and joined the Westchester County Court. And I've been serving as Judge Blackwood's court attorney since then. So it's been about 6 years. Serving as a court attorney, I'm basically the judge's right hand. I do a tremendous amount of legal research and legal writing, conferencing with attorneys, conferencing with the judge, basically learning how to do the job that I am seeking your support to get. Judge Blackwood is a county court judge, so she handles criminal matters, but she is also acting supreme, handling civil matters, acting surrogates, and acting family court. So we really do a little bit of everything. I'm a Westchester native, grew up in Mount Vernon. I now live in Somers with my husband and our 2 teenage daughters, who keep me very busy off the campaign trail. So again, thank you so much for this forum, and I look forward to answering any questions later.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing. We're going to keep this train rolling. Mr. Farka, Honorable Farka, could you please unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about why we should choose you? Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for having me at this forum.
Absolutely.
I think honorable is a little premature, but thank you
You're
anyway.
hopeful. Are you hopeful? We're hopeful. Are you hopeful?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I am a novice at politics. Other than voting, I've never run for anything, but I am a veteran litigator. I've practiced since 1996, civil litigation in state and federal courts. While I was in law school, though, I did intern for a Supreme Court judge in Queens, and as well as for the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District in Brooklyn. So I have knowledge of how it works and how the chambers inner workings go, and how the play and the flow go in a chambers. And I also have obviously significant experience from the practitioner side of the bench. I know what it means to answer to a client. I know what it means to comply with a deadline. So when other people from the practitioner side come and say that they have difficulties in meeting deadlines, I know what it means to comply with the court rule, but also why sometimes court rules have to be flexible to meet the real needs of litigants and their attorneys. I live in New Rochelle since 2003. Have 4 children. I grew up in Queens. I went to a Jewish day school through high school. I went to Columbia undergrad and Fordham Law School. So basically, I'm a city kid since until I moved to New Rochelle. I have 4 children of my own. I've gone to Jewish day schools here in Westchester, to the LaFell School. Currently, I have 2 left there. One is the 8th, one 11th. My twin older children are in University of Michigan and University of Delaware, studying engineering. Engineering wasn't my strong suit. I didn't succeed in the Columbia Engineering School, which is why I think I see the word stop. So I guess I have to stop.
Oh, well, thank you for being so considerate of our time.
Thank you.
And you are able to answer any questions afterwards. So
Sure.
thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to move to John Sarcone. Could you please unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about why we should choose you?
Second. Hi.
Hello.
I'm sorry, I'm also campaigning. I'm here at the Harrison train station. A lot of
Very
people coming
good.
in from New York. My name is John Sarcone. I've been a practicing attorney for 25 years, largely in the Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Rockland, Orange County. I've also had a practice which brought me to Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens. Sorry about that.
That's quite all right. Thank you so very much for joining us.
I actually was in a quiet place till they kicked me out. They said the place closed at 7. Yeah, so I've been a practicing attorney for largely 25 years and all different areas of the law, with the exception of criminal defense. I never did criminal defense, but I have done insurance defense, and I've done commercial transactions, real estate, land use. I've been a municipal attorney. I was a town attorney in Eastchester. I've been an attorney for the town of Cornwall. I've represented clients in groundwater contamination cases. My largest and most successful case was suing ExxonMobil and Sunoco for contaminating groundwater in Fort Montgomery. Okay. I'd like to be a Supreme Court judge to give back that knowledge and that experience to the people. We need experienced people on that bench, people who have been there, people who have practiced law, people who have represented clients in all different areas. It's absolutely essential to have that knowledge and that background in the court, in my opinion. So I'm seeking support from every corner, and I'm glad to have an opportunity to present here in this room. Thank you.
Well, thank you so very much. Very good, Ms. Eisenpress. And then we'd like to welcome Ms. Murray.
Hi, everybody, and thanks to the Westchester Women's Black Caucus for hosting this forum. It's a great way to speak to people. Very briefly, I grew up in Brooklyn, the second of 4 children, and I lived and practiced in Manhattan for about 25 years. I did a federal clerkship with a federal judge, worked at 2 large corporate firms doing intellectual property, employment, and family litigation and commercial litigation. And in 2011, I ran for an open seat in Rockland County. I'm the Rockland person here. I ran for an open seat in Rockland County for the family court and was elected. 2 years after being elected, I was appointed acting Supreme Court judge. And in that capacity, I took over the integrated domestic violence part. A few years later, I was given a full-time Supreme Court calendar, which I have now to this day. I also preside over the domestic violence part and the youth part, which was created as part of the Raise the Age legislation. I sit on the Access to Justice Committee and a couple of the subcommittees of that group. I sit on the Court Improvement Project for Rockland. I'm working on creating a hub court for domestic violence, criminal misdemeanors, and felony cases. And I've brought a mentoring program from the city up to New York to help deal with some of our at-risk youth. I'm married. I have a son who's about to go to college, which is really scary. And I live in Rockland, in Nyack. So I appreciate being here, and I look forward to answering any questions.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so very much for sharing. Moving this train along, Ms. Murray, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Annie, and thank you for organizing this by from the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. My name's Linda Murray. I'm running for Supreme Court, 5-county race, Dutchess, Orange, Rockland, Westchester, and Putnam. I'm the Dutchess girl, although I did live in Mamaroneck for quite some time. I graduated from Binghamton University, Albany Law School. I am public school educated, other than, of course, law school. And out of law school, I took a position as an assistant district attorney in Queens County, where I was there for 7 years. I prosecuted thousands of violent felony offenses. I've done thousands of grand jury presentments. I've done hundreds of adversarial suppression hearings before Supreme Court judges, and I've done dozens of jury trials before Supreme Court judges to verdict. When it came time for my husband and I to raise our family, we moved back home. Home is Dutchess County. And I have 2 children where my daughter is also at Binghamton as a sophomore. My son is a middle schooler. And they are also both public school educated. When I got back to Dutchess County, I hung out my own shingle. I became a town attorney of a local municipality, and I was also working part-time at a medical malpractice defense firm where I was doing litigation before Supreme Court judges as well, all throughout the district.
Well, thank you so much. That is a bevy of information for us.
I didn't realize that my time was up. But anyway, I have 25 years of legal experience, and I'm hoping that I am one of the 7 selected for this upcoming election.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for staying on for questions. We'd like to also welcome Rich Gurton. Are you on and able to unmute yourself and share and tell us a little bit about why you should be elected?
There I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me back on. I was on last year. I ran for Supreme Court and had a chance to talk with all of you a little bit about my background then. And I'll say it now. I grew up in Middletown, went to Middletown schools, Orange County Community College, spent a year in Washington, D.C. with our Congressman Ben Gilman, went to Hamilton College, New York University Law School, worked 2 years with a big international law firm in Washington and Los Angeles, and then came back home to practice law. I practiced law for over 30 years, primarily in the civil area and especially municipal. I was a city of Middletown attorney for 25 years and the attorney for other towns and villages, and a broad civil practice. Became Middletown City Court judge in the early 2000s, went back on the bench in May of 2018 and full-time, and I've been on the Middletown bench since. I cover all the civil cases and I have a criminal calendar, and being a judge is one of the greatest privileges I've ever experienced. Just briefly, I'll tell you my judicial philosophy is kind of 3-part. One, I'm not a legislator. There are people such as Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins who takes care of that stuff. My job as a judge is to apply the law to the facts and make a decision, and that's it. I don't legislate. So that's my first part of my judicial philosophy. The second is people joke about, well, when does the court start? It starts when the judge is there, and I think that's wrong. The court starts when it's supposed to. I have to be there on time, just like litigants and lawyers. If I expect them to be there, I owe them the respect and dignity to be there on time as well. And the last, I want everyone who walks out of my court to know whether they win or whether they lose. I want them to believe that I gave them a fair shake. And I think that's probably one of the best things a judge can ask for, is that people walk out believing and feeling that they were treated well and fairly, and they got a fair shake, even if they lost. So thank you for giving me the time. This is great of you to do this for the candidates, and again, thank you. I would ask for your support in November. Thanks.
Why, thank you so very much. The questions are coming in, they're overwhelming. If I have missed any of the judicial candidates, please raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you.
Yes, me, Bob Cipher.
There we go, Bob. Welcome, welcome. Please share with us.
Okay, I'm Bob Cipher. I have been a practicing attorney for 42 years. I have been a trial attorney for that entire time. I graduated from Fairfield University and Fordham Law School. After law school, I served in the Marine Corps as a judge advocate, and I remained in the Marine Corps Reserve for 23 years, retiring in 1996. I've served as a Rye City councilman for 4 years, and I was a Rye City judge for 6. One of the things my guiding principle was that my courtroom was going to be a welcoming and friendly place. And it was borne out by the fact that I actually got a 5-star Yelp review. I don't think too many judges can say that. My view is that as a trial attorney for the past 40 plus years, I know what it's like to try a case, and I know what it's like to be an attorney dealing with the pressures of a trial, of clients. And as a judge, I want to make sure that every attorney gets the chance to try his and her case out of fairness to their clients. I was born and raised in White Plains, lived in Rye for the past 27 years. I have been married to the wonderful woman for 39 years. I have 3 grown children and 2 absolutely adorable grandchildren. I am seeking your vote for Supreme Court. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for sharing that. We here at the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus know how important it is to choose the very best judge for your community. Often we know how important it is to vote for president. We know how important it is to vote for governor. But let's be honest, we will all come across a judge before we come across anyone else. We have more interactions with them when we need local laws change or just issues we have in our own community, the needs and rights for our families. So it is very important that you take time, reach out to the judges in your area and request to meet, ask questions, submit them, because these are the people that you have direct hands-on contact. So we at the Black Women's Political Caucus would like to thank you. And we do have a few questions. I'm going to pose the questions in sets of 4. So when I choose the 4 judges, I'd like them to be able to answer, if you choose, the questions from our Q&A panel. So the first question that we have.
We thank you. We thank the judges for presenting themselves and saying something about themselves. And at this time, the question we have is, what is the appropriate role for voting rights in our democracy?
Very good. So we'd like David Squirrel to be able to answer this, Ms. Murray, John Sarcone, and Ms. Minihan. Mr. Squirrel, you may go first.
Sure, thank you very much. I can tell you that, of course, voting rights are extremely important. In terms of how they would affect me as a judge, we are not allowed to really comment on the pros and cons of any specific form of legislation. But I can tell you that in my career, I view access to the courts the same as voting rights. And I've learned that through my service at the Putnam County Legal Aid Society. So in the same manner that the courts have to be open to everyone to give an individual their day in court, I would agree that access to the ballot should be the same. But again, I'm not making any comment one way or the other on any type of legislation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Minihan? Would you like to answer
There
that?
I am. Sure, thank you. You know what? I think particularly in a Supreme Court race, voting rights and voting is absolutely critical. I mean, it's important for all branches of government that, the power represent the people. And in every different branch, it takes a different form. In the Supreme Court, our terms are very long. So if elected, the judges will serve 14-year terms. And it's critical to get it right because 14 years is a very long time. And if you don't get it right, you have a judge sitting on the bench for that period of time who is, perhaps not the best choice. It is important to make thoughtful choices and, and that's true regardless of what that judge is judging, whether it is a traffic ticket, whether it's a petty criminal matter, whether it's a landlord-tenant dispute, a contract dispute, a tort action, whatever it is, it's crucial. And so voting rights and our ability to vote is important in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. That offered so much clarity. Either of the other two judicial candidates, would you like to join in to this answer?
Well, I could just say that I want everybody to vote. That's why I'm at the Harrison train station. I was at Crestwood this morning at 6 o'clock. So I'm out here working hard to promote voting. And I think that is the most sacred, one of the most sacred rights that we have. And it makes us unique from every place else in the world. That we have options, we have choices. And and this forum is a perfect segue for all of it. So thank you once again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that answer. All righty.
Want me to answer it as well?
Please, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for the question because it's something that I feel very strongly about. But I've raised my children themselves to understand what it means to vote. Even when my son and my daughter were not of voting age, we made up fake ballots so that they could walk in and pretend to vote so that they had that experience. And I really believe it starts at home. Education starts at home. Teaching that civic responsibility starts at home. And for those who don't have that taught at home, I think that our education system should teach a civics course where it's truly an honored right to exercise. I mean, we've had the women's suffrage movement that was only 100 years ago, 100 plus. And we've had the Revolutionary War where men and women died so that they could vote and have the country that we live in today. So I feel extremely strongly about making sure that there's access to the ballot, that people have the right to vote. And again, I believe that education starts at home. It upsets me when I'm with boots on the ground and I have adults who say, I don't vote. And I just want to say, what? Vote for something, be an educated voter. And it's forums like these, the one that you're conducting today, I wish it was everywhere. I wish it was just everywhere. We need to be educated voters, and we need, as parents and aunts, uncles, grandparents, to teach our children how important it is and how it's the foundation of our country.
Well, thank you so very much. And this, the answers to those questions might be why the Black women voters are one of the largest voting populations in America, is because we strive to educate our communities. So we here at the Black Women's Political Caucus Yonkers chapter would like to thank you all again for answering those questions. We do have a few more questions, and we'd like a few more judges, judicial candidates, to answer the next question, if you would. And thank you again for those that already shared. This question will go to Ms. Peralta, Ms. Fior, Ms. Goldberg Velasquez, and Mr. Farka. Ms. Williams or Ms. Bracy?
What do you perceive is the greatest obstacle to justice, if any?
Excellent.
If I'm assuming you named me first, so I'm going to go ahead and go first.
Excellent.
Well, I would say that access to justice, equal access to justice, is one of the largest hurdles we have to overcome in the legal system, particularly in the criminal justice system. It's interesting because I spent so many years trying cases and so many years in court, and it took COVID to really make court optimally accessible to all people. One of the things that I do as the law clerk to Judge Blackwood is Judge Blackwood presides over the youth part of Westchester County, and it's clear to us every single day that just going to court, just getting to the courtroom is a tremendous obstacle for so many members of our community. And so giving members of our community virtual access to the courtroom is a something that we have that I hope never goes away. It's not optimal. It's not the best. It may not be the best way to do it, but it certainly gives people access when they wouldn't have access otherwise. Other things that Judge Blackwood implements that I would be sure to implement is making sure that there's always an interpreter available should there be a litigant or a defendant or a witness or a parent in the courtroom where English is not their first language. They deserve to understand everything that's being said. They deserve to walk out of there with that understanding. And that's one of the things that I would ensure if I am so fortunate as to be elected in November. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good. Next. Mhm.
Okay, can I answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So there's a saying, justice delayed is justice denied. And I agree wholeheartedly with Amy. Access to the courts is very important, and that takes on so many forms of having that access. And also timeliness, being able to render a decision, render a timely decision, and render a decision that is based on the law and facts that are presented to you. I think having been in the courts for quite a while, we have suffered from a lot of delays in the courts. And I think that we've done a really good job on fixing those delays, at least in the 9th Judicial District. Any of the delays that were the result of COVID were really addressed quite promptly, I think. And we pivoted really well in the pandemic to make sure that we were addressing people's concerns, addressing people's cases, even though we're dealing with that issue during the pandemic. And I think as a Supreme Court justice, you have a lot of cases that come through your door. You have to be able to make a decision. You have to know the law. And I think, all of the candidates on the Democratic slate we just have an amazing slate. Democrats, we all have experience working either in the courts or in either in the courts or in private practice. And so I think that we would be the best candidates to address any timeliness concerns that may still be plaguing the courts. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And our last, Velasquez, would you like to chime in?
Yes, absolutely. As a city court judge, I pretty much deal with everyday people who have, real problems, real issues. Oftentimes, it's the only time a person would come to court for, say, a traffic ticket, or if there was, say, they're being evicted because they can't pay their rent, or say a criminal matter and they're a victim, or maybe they're the defendant. And what I seek every single day is to make sure that they have representation. And if for those of us who are familiar with the courts, we do know that OCA just passed a new regulation that we really cannot inquire as to the person's financial ability to pay for accounts to afford an attorney, that no matter what, they have to be provided. Prior to that, obviously everyone fills out the affidavit indicating your financial status, but really the judge cannot inquire. Previously, the judge could. And I will tell you why this is important. It's so important for people to have good representation. And I will say in Westchester, we are fortunate that the Legal Aid Society and the 18B attorneys and the legal services of Hudson Valley do a very, very good job in representing the indigent. And oftentimes, from the view of the bench, I can tell you that those attorneys do a better job than retained counsel, right? Because they really know the needs, they know how to talk to people. And I think it's so important that everyone's represented. I think in New York State, we are, and especially in Westchester, as in New York City, we are blessed with understanding that not everyone can afford a lawyer, and that it's so important that you do not advocate on your own behalf, because sometimes, we get emotional, we don't understand the arguments, and the other side who has attorneys will be very well equipped to come after us. So I think it's so important that the fact that we provide counsel, that we make sure that if someone is not satisfied with their attorney, that we get a new attorney appointed or assigned to them. And also we make sure that, as Carrie, my running mate, did mention, that the cases are handled in expeditious matter. So if you're in landlord-tenant court, or if you have a criminal matter and say you have immigration consequences, we know that that issue has to be resolved so that you are not deported. And we really try to make sure that everyone's voice is heard, everyone is equally heard, and that has proper representation. Thank you.
Wow, you all have given us such food for thought. You're making it ever so challenging for us to decide, but we do appreciate the education. So our next question would like to go to the remaining judicial candidates, but I'd like to invite Peter Bernstein. Are you able to share and tell us a little bit why you're running? Are you still on? Is Peter still on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Please share with us a little bit. We're sorry you can't share your camera.
Oh, no? Okay. I'm yeah, happy to talk, happy to be on cameras. Thank you so much for letting me speak for a few minutes. Peter Bernstein, I'm the new chair of the Working Families Party here in Westchester and Putnam. So many friends in the caucus there, so many great people. Annie, Keisha, Maria, Simra. I saw Maddie on the camera. And thanks to President Vincent for telling me about this. I was in New Rochelle.
Those buttons are tricky. Try to unmute yourself again.
Okay, I'm a panelist.
There we go. There we go.
I was in New Rochelle on Thursday night. What a great night. And it's, honor to be with you guys today. Wow, Yonkers, Black women empowering Yonkers. We heard from Andrea Stewart-Cousins, one of the three most important political figures in the state. You've got your city council president, Lakeisha Collins-Bellamy. You've got, your councilwoman, Shanae Williams. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot always to honor about what's been happening in Yonkers. And New York WFP, we're led by Black women too. Our state director is from New Rochelle. She couldn't be here tonight, Sochi Nameka. Her deputy director is a Black woman, Sharon Cromwell. And my vice chair of the chapter, Jennifer Cabrera, is a Black woman. So we appreciate, we follow the philosophy of following Black women. In New York State, we're a fusion party. We're a fusion voting state. So candidates can be on more than one ballot line. So many of the Democratic candidates that you heard from tonight and weren't able to be on tonight also were on the Working Families Party ballot. Not the judges, but everybody else. So from Hochul Delgado, Tish James, who won her first race as a Working Families Party candidate, you can vote for them as a Democrat or on the Working Families Party line. When you vote on the Working Families Party line, you're basically sending a message that you support the more progressive side of the Democratic Party. You want the priorities to be affordable housing. You want the priorities to be criminal justice reform, investment in all our communities. And, you know, we were there for Mondaire when he ran. We were there for Jamal when he ran. You know, that's who we are. There's, you know, we need transformative change. We need, you know, there's too much income inequality. We need racial, social, and economic justice. And if you believe in those things, please vote Working Families Party in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. And we do appreciate the shout outs. Don't think that's going to give you a couple extra seconds, but we definitely appreciate the shout outs. Yeah, we are on the move and we're happy to support candidates that support our community. So shout out to other elected officials, Shanae Williams and Councilman Pineda Isaac. We do appreciate you joining us as well. We have another question. We have several questions, but the next question we would like Mr. Cipher and Farka, Ms. Eisenpress, if you would answer this question along with Bernstein following up last to answer the question. And Ms. Williams or Ms. Bracy, do you have another question for our judicial candidates?
Yes, I do have a question. What has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career?
Hard to name one, but let's see what they do.
So
Mr. Cipher?
Yeah, let me start. I think it's hard to say because I've probably tried about 100 cases to verdict, and all of them have been very different. Two things. One probably doesn't have too much to do with legal, but another one does. When I was a city councilman in Rye, my term was for 4 years, and of course, many times we have issues with our kids finding things to do. So what I worked on very, very hard, and took my entire term to do it, was we got a skate park built. And we had a lot of fits and starts to do it, but finally we got it done with a public-private partnership. And I'm very proud of that fact. And our mayor at the time, Steve Otis, who was a Democrat, but a very good friend of mine, promised me that when I had finally kicked the bucket, it's going to be named the Bob Cipher Memorial Skate Park. So I'm very, very pleased with that. Another wonderful moment in my legal career is in a malpractice case. I represented a nurse practitioner who was the last person to see a patient before she expired with a dissecting aortic aneurysm. The doctor who was supervising her tried to blame it on her. And I remember having a lunch with the attorney for the doctor, who said, you know, Bob, it's your girl who's going to take the weight on this. And I said, well, you know what? No, it's your boy who was supervising her, and he is the one who's responsible for it. This poor woman was just beside herself, feeling guilt over it. I spent so much time with her, holding her hand, visiting her family, talking to her husband, even playing with her dog. And we managed to settle the case for a really, really fair amount. The doc who was trying to pin the case on her wound up getting hit for several $1 million. And I got the nicest card from her, thanking her for my work. I didn't earn an extra penny out of it, but it made me feel really, really good that I represented a really, really nice person and took her, did as much as I could to put her mind at ease and represent her so she felt that someone was looking out for her. And that probably is my favorite moment in my legal career.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Ms. Eisenpress?
Hi there. So that's a great question, and merely made me start to think about all the things I've done over the course of my legal career. And I'm old, so it's been a long time. But I guess there are two things I would answer that I would pick out as that I'm very proud of. One is it happened while I was on the bench, but it wasn't really a judicial function per se. One of the things I saw when I joined the family court bench was a real need for some programs for the youth that were getting arrested in the county, getting in trouble, and there was a real lack of programs. And I worked with the district attorney at the time to create, along with a lot of other people, to create something called the Partnership for Safe Youth. And as part of that, I brought a mentoring program to the county, which has worked very closely with the schools and various other organizations. And it's really made a difference in many of these kids' lives. So I feel particularly happy about that. That's and I guess as a lawyer, my very first case that I tried, it was like a Perry Mason episode. It was a domestic violence case. I was doing it pro bono. It was my first trial that I did where I was the first chair, meaning the lead attorney. And there was a witness on the stand who was lying, a doctor who was lying. And the other side hadn't turned over the notes from the doctor, and the judge ordered them turned over. And we spent all night reading the notes, and we were able to prove she was lying. And we got this woman her child back. And really just was an amazing outcome, very emotional, and it changed the law on custody and domestic violence in New York State. So I'm very proud of that.
Wow, thank you so very much. Farka or Mr. Bernstein? Farka, thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. So I think I was actually supposed to answer the previous question as well, but it actually dovetails with this question. I had a case early on. It usually represents in real estate litigation, the greater resources is the owner, the property owner. So a lot of times there's a large power imbalance between owner and the tenant. So oftentimes you'll find that the representation that each side can afford is not the same. And as an owner's attorney, I often find myself faced by counsel who may not have the same level of experience. And I think it's important that when a judge is faced with that kind of power imbalance, that the judge can see through to the arguments that perhaps are not raised or perhaps are not made as eloquently as the better resourced party is able to make them. I've had also the opportunity, one of the first cases that I tried was up here in White Plains City Court for a mom and pop business. And I actually represented the tenant, the commercial tenant in that case. The owner was trying to throw that business out on what I believed at the time was an improper ground. I was able to thwart that at trial by calling out the unfair tactics and in my view, the violation of the lease and the tenant's rights in that case. I was able to save that business from being thrown out in that case. Ultimately, the landlord had the greater resources, and the client was not able to withstand it. Ultimately, and obviously, this was right after 9/11. This was November 2001. So that business didn't end up surviving. That was personal money, family money, invested life savings into that business. And it was a tragedy to see how it ended up, but I did my best at the time, and I was able to save that tenant at the earliest stages. So that was my greatest my greatest joy.
Thank you so very much. So all of the judicial candidates, one of the things that we found when trying to educate our community is that we often get questions that we should ask our judicial candidates. And we're always trying to share with them, that's a question that they're not going to be allowed to answer. So I'd like any of the judicial candidates to raise their hand and share with the constituents from your point of view why basic questions can't be asked. What is your view on gun rights? What is your view on abortion? We're always asking these questions because we know we're going to come to court and that may be part of our case. But why can't judges answer that? Who would like to educate the constituents on why those questions can't be asked while you're running?
I'm happy to do that if you'd like.
Thank you so much, Ms.
Sure. So, the idea is that we need to have an independent judiciary and one that's not beholden to political forces, that we decide our cases based on the law and the facts and the parties that are in front of us without fear or favor and without reference to any political perspective. Of course, we all belong to political parties and we run on political lines, which some may argue, myself included, that that should change. But be that as it may, we do that. So people have a sense of people's perspective. But if we start commenting on political issues, people who appear in front of us who may not have the same point of view as us on a political issue that really has nothing to do with their case, may feel like they're not, getting a fair shake. Also, with respect to other cases in court, a lot of these issues wind up in court and are litigated in front of judges. And, some trial judge may get that. So we can't comment on issues that are pending before the court or issues that are controversial. And it's really to maintain as much independence and free from bias as we can.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate that answer. Was there any other candidate that would like to add on to that answer? It appears that that answer was quite sufficient. And all those judicial candidates in favor, go ahead and throw your hand up so the constituents can see that you are totally in agreement with that answer. And it's interesting because we came across it over and over again. So thank you all for agreeing with Sherry Eisenpress on that answer. And it really does help educate all of us, our district leaders. We'd like to thank all of you for being on the line. We hope that question also answers when your community comes and asks. Mr. Squirrel, did you want to add in?
No, I was
No.
just, when you said raise your hand if you agree. So it was very.
Fantastic, fantastic. At this time, we'd like to give happy hands to all of our judicial candidates. I am really struggling which way to go now, but I do have some clearer views on which judges to pick. And I hope our candidates, our constituents also have a better idea of who they like to vote for in this upcoming election. So we'd like to thank you all again for showing up. And we're going to ask you at this moment to flip the vote. And so when we say flip the vote, we're always voting, we're checking our boxes, getting our elected officials. However, this year on the back of your ballot, on the side or at the bottom, there is another proposal, and these are critical. Please take a listen in on why we would like you to flip the vote. Give it a
November 8th. Don't forget to flip over your ballot to vote on Proposition 1. Flip it over. To safeguard clean drinking water. Flip it over. To improve air quality. Flip it over. To mitigate the impacts of floods and extreme heat. Flip it over. To update New York's roads, sewer systems, and water pipes. Flip it over. To support 100,000 good-paying jobs for New Yorkers. Flip it over, please. To advance environmental justice in communities most affected by pollution. The choice is yours. To flip it over for clean water, clean air, and green jobs with no tax increase. Flip it over.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. We're going to ask that all of our community members and families take a little minute to educate yourselves about Proposal 1. We also shared a video here. Reach out to your district leaders, reach out to different campaigns, ask them to explain Proposal 1 a little bit more, and definitely seek out other resources to find out about it. You can also go to the Board of Elections and they can give you a pre-printed copy of what Proposal 1 looks like in its entirety. You can go to the website, and also it will have the whole outline of what it means to vote yes or no for clean air, clean water, improvement of our roads and systems. And all of us would think that's an automatic yes, but always read the fine lines within the proposals so that you know it's the right direction for our community. So thank you guys, everyone, for educating yourselves by coming to this forum. We'd like to thank all of our audience members. We'd like to thank all of our candidates, all of our district leaders, our elected officials. I definitely want to thank all of the ladies of the Black Women's Political Caucus. Without you ladies, we would not have been able to get this done. We'd like to thank our hosts. We'd like to thank Miss Williams and Miss Willis and Miss Del Monte, timekeeper. Let's give a thumbs up for the timekeeper, doing very well. Thank you, Miss Bracy. Thank you, Miss Chapman and Miss Clark and Miss Vincent, Miss Parker, Miss Weaver, Raquel, all of the ladies of the Black Women's Political Caucus. This has been an amazing and yet informative forum. Look out for us in the next election. We constantly seek to educate all of our community members, and it's why we are a viable force when it comes to elections and community and voting rights. Before we close, we'd like to know if our Westchester Political Caucus President, Sabomi McCullough, would like to share a few words.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus and my home chapter, the Yonkers chapter, we'd like to thank you all for joining this Candidates Forum tonight. Candidates Forum are a way of building that relationship one-on-one with candidates who are running for office, because as constituents and as residents of the great city of Yonkers in Westchester County, it is important that we ask candidates these questions that are really kitchen table questions, which matter more to our lifestyles. So when I heard some of the questions tonight and I heard some of the answers, I was very impressed, because we definitely have a stellar caliber of candidates who are running for offices in Westchester County, and the judicial candidates understand that the laws that they enforce and the laws that are enacted in Westchester County affect our population here in the city of Yonkers. Yonkers, as you know, is the third largest city in New York State. We have a large number of the cases in our courts. And so we want to hear what the solutions are to these matters that come before us as residents of the city of Yonkers. Yes, the judges preside over the cases, but these cases are relevant to our lives because our family members, our neighbors, and even us sometimes come before the court, and we have to understand how the system works so that we are best prepared before we walk into the courtroom. On behalf of Charlotte Vincent, president of the Yonkers chapter, and all the Yonkers members who put this forum together tonight, I just want to say a big thank you. Look out for more from the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, President. We do so appreciate you. Happy hands to our president. And please like us on Facebook. Please find us on Instagram, all the social medias. If you have any questions and you feel that the candidates are not getting back to you, reach out to us, please, and we will be happy to put you in connection with them. All of the candidates, almost all, have shared their contact or campaign information within the chat. Please do so now, and we want to make sure that everyone gets their answers, their questions answered. We are all about educating our community. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. We'd like to close out in prayer, as is our fashion. And thank you once again. I am Dana Johnson, and I give you greetings and closings from the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus Yonkers chapter for our 2022 Virtual Candidates Forum. Ms. Williams, can you close us with?
Dana?
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to say thank you to you as our chair and our moderator, as well as our co-chairs, Simmer Brandon and Annie Willis. This was, I mean, from day one, when you came in, you were willing to work. And I'm just very appreciative of your leadership and your willingness. So thank you.
Allowing us to have a wonderful candidates forum. We thank you for all the information that we received. We thank you for allowing us to do things in decency and in order. We are so inspired now to make informed choices because we've heard from each of the candidates tonight. We ask that you bless them abundantly, bless those that could not come on the call, and bless those that wanted to come on but couldn't make it as well. We thank you, God, for everything you have done. We worship you, we honor you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray, and we all say amen. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Nice, wonderful
Yes,
job,
good night,
ladies.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Great job.
Good
Thank
night,
you,
all.
Gary. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night,
See you
everyone.
soon. See you soon.
Thank you. Dana, you rock.
Dana, you rock, girl.